I remember it so vividly. I wasn't watching, but I was listening on the radio because I was going to the Arkansas Derby. Flew into Memphis, drove to the Arkansas Derby. The Cubs were playing Friday afternoon, best time slot in the entire world in sports. And they had Mike Glennon throwing out the first pitch, and he did the in-game interview, and they're like, what does it feel like to be QB1? And then they drafted Mitch Trubisky. So the Bears at least are learning that don't trot out your quarterback until after the draft, because then you can trot out the correct one and not say, hey, we have Andy Dalton at Wrigley today. Everyone please clap.
And there are so many parallels between what happened 4 years ago. Glennon comes in, free agency, gets the contract that implies he is QB1. Then the drafting of the quarterback happens. 4 years ago it was Trubisky. This year, obviously, it was Justin Fields. But there still is the persistent sense, like there was in 2017 when John Fox was the coach, that the veteran is going to be the week one starter no matter what. And look, I'm told that Dalton was told when he signed, you're the guy week one. And I don't know how they walk that back, especially if Fields ends up being pretty damn good and the locker room's like, we got to go with this guy. I guess at a certain point you just have to say to Andy Dalton, sorry, man. I mean, here's the film. We're trying to win football games here if Fields is that good. But Dalton's under the impression he's the guy week one because he was told he's the guy week one when he signed the one-year deal with the Bears.
And that's the part I do not understand, Mike. I think I am not going to sit here and tell you that Justin Fields should be the week one starter because I don't know. I'm not watching the practice. I'm not a football coach. What I do know, though, is if you're smart and you run a smart organization and you're a smart coach, you leave it up to competition. That is, the best football coaches will always say, it's a competition. We want our best guys out there. So I don't know why Matt Nagy came out this week and said, well, there's nothing I could see that could happen that wouldn't have Andy Dalton being the week one starter. What? How? What are you talking about? What if Justin Fields is the greatest quarterback you've ever seen? You're really not going to start him? That's such a boxed-in thinking that it drives me insane because a good coach, and I know he could say one thing, do another, but I think he actually believes it. I think he's saying this is the right thing to do, have Andy Dalton. No, the right thing to do is put out the best player. And if it's Justin Fields, that should be the guy who starts week one. And I'm not saying that you should hurry up his timeline. I'm not saying if it's even that you start Justin Fields. No. If Justin Fields is that much better than Andy Dalton, let's just say it, he should start. That's just what a winning organization does, not trot out and say, well, Andy Dalton's a week one starter no matter what.
I've got some thoughts on that. I will hold them until after we hear a little bit from Matt Nagy talking about this very situation as it relates to whoever the starting quarterback will be week one, Sunday Night Football on NBC when the Bears play the Rams. Here's Nagy.
I'll give you updates as we go as to how the guys are doing. But as far as the depth chart goes, this is where we're at with Andy as the one, with Justin as the two, with Nick as the three. But all three of those guys know that you need to produce, you need to play well, you need to compete, you need to be the best quarterback you can be. And then it's going to be really pretty easy for us to be able to see who that is and how that goes. And then there'll be a process and a plan. We're going to stick to that. It's not going to change tomorrow. That plan's not going to change tomorrow. The plan is not going to change in training camp. The plan is a plan, and it's been thought out. And so as we go, I'm just taking some time on this question because I think, this could go every day. And I just want you to know that's kind of, as we go here, where I'm at, and so depth chart wise. But to go back to your original question, Hub, if that was the case, yes, then Justin would be our starter.
They said back in 2012, Pete Carroll was so brave to start Russell Wilson as a rookie over Matt Flynn, the guy they gave the 8-figure signing bonus to. And it wasn't. It would have been brave to not start Russell Wilson because everybody in the building knew that Wilson was clearly superior. That's the point that you're getting at. If there's one guy who emerges as the best guy, whoever it is, he needs to be the quarterback. But here's what I think Matt Nagy is doing. Matt Nagy is incorporating into this quarterback situation the same approach Andy Reid used 4 years ago with Patrick Mahomes and Alex Smith. Because you know what? If they had a full and fair and open competition in 2017, maybe Mahomes would have won it as a rookie. Maybe I had Travis Kelce on this program during the 2017 season, and the issue came up with Mahomes at practice, and Kelsey said, this guy is doing amazing things. Reed's force of personality, I think, was able to hold the locker room together behind Alex Smith for that 1 year, but that was the deliberate plan. 1 year, Alex Smith plays, we get Mahomes ready, and I feel like Nagy's trying to do that same thing, and I think it's apples and oranges, but I think that's what he's trying to do.
No offense to Andy Dalton. Had him on our show. Very nice guy. Actually, I'm going to give him a ton of credit because everything I've read, he has been exactly what you'd hope from a veteran quarterback in terms of a rookie quarterback coming in and him helping him and him not saying, I'm threatened by him. He's helped Justin Fields. Alex Smith was better than Andy Dalton. And that thing was going. You know what I mean? Like, so it doesn't apply because they win 10 games a year before and went to the playoffs. Like, you could say, oh yeah, the Bears went to the playoffs this year. They invented a 7th seed just so the Bears could lose on Nickelodeon. Okay, they didn't go to the playoffs. I don't want to hear it. I really don't. They weren't good. They weren't good. This isn't a cohesive thing that's going forward. They're trying to put it back together, and they're trying to do it from the quarterback position because everything else was ready to go. You know what I mean? This defense is not getting younger. The window is, they're in a weird spot right now where, we've talked about it a million times. The plan going forward for most franchises, especially when they're looking at quarterback, is find that young quarterback on a rookie deal, build up your roster around him in those first 4 or 5 years. That's when you have to win. So what are we doing here? Like, the defense is ready to go. And again, this is all just saying Justin Fields is doing great and he's way better than Andy Dalton. But if those things are true, like, what are we doing here? That it's a wasted year, in my opinion, of a defense that is not getting younger.
Yeah, Chiefs were 12-4 the year before they drafted Patrick Mahomes. They had to spring from 27 up to 10 to get him, and it was easier to justify sitting him. It was Alex Smith had equity, years of equity, playoff appearances built up with the Kansas City Chiefs. But there was a general understanding that they had gotten as far as an organization as they could possibly go. And this is a franchise that had been trying for almost 50 years to get back to the Super Bowl. They had had good seasons that never quite ended the way they wanted to. They had so many home playoff losses. I think it was the perfect time for them to do what they did. But again, that's what makes it apples and oranges. This is a different situation. Andy Dalton has no equity with the Bears. This is a team that is desperately groping in the dark for a franchise quarterback. And you mean to tell me that you're going to slow down the development of the guy who may be the one simply because you made a promise to Andy Dalton in March? That to me is where it all falls apart.
And people love to point to the Patrick Mahomes. They love to point to the Aaron Rodgers. And I think for the most part, those are the exceptions, not the rules. Because those guys, again, if Andy Dalton was 12-4 last year, took the Bears to 12-4 and won the NFC North, like, I would be sitting here right now being like, yeah, of course you got to roll with Andy Dalton, see if it's still, the magic is still there. That says it all. Alex Smith was a good quarterback. He was 12-4. That team was rolling. They could take a chance on a guy who, coming into the draft, people were like, hey, Texas Tech, who knows? And build him up and get him to a spot where he's going. But that's the exception, not the rule. I think that in today's NFL, you see it a lot more. Guys start right away because you want to start that clock. You want to get your guy ready to go and have that window where you have him cheaper than you will have him if he becomes that big-time franchise quarterback, then takes up tons of salary cap.
Let's hear from Justin Fields on his development as a rookie and the extent to which he expects to get some help from the veteran Andy Dalton. Here's Fields.
My job is strictly to get better, be the best quarterback I can be, and help my team win. So that's what I'm going to do, whether it's starting, whether it's sitting. I'm going to do whatever is, but that's going to help us win. So yeah. I've learned a lot of things. I couldn't even name off a few things, but I mean, he's talked to me a lot. I actually went to dinner with him and his wife, so we talked a lot there, and kind of just his background and stuff like that, their story. But I mean, Andy and Nick, they've been awesome to me, probably bigger than you guys even know. Yeah. I mean, Andy's completely taken me under his wing. Any question that I have for him, he's going to answer. And then even when I'm throwing, I think there was one day out. After OTAs, I was throwing extra after practice, and he stayed out there specifically just to, see maybe what I was doing wrong, and he was just trying to help me out. So I mean, he's been a huge help for sure.
I mean, that's good, and that's part of being a teammate, and that's the tension that's inherent to being the older guy who knows he's not going to be there for very long and the younger guy who's trying to learn the ropes. And when you're in that interpersonal situation, it's kind of hard to be a jerk and just kind of give the cold shoulder to the rookie and be overly protective of the job that you may not keep for very long anyway. So it's good that Andy Dalton is doing what he's doing, but I think that would be the normal human thing to do if you're trying to have some sort of spirit of camaraderie in the organization. The question is, how long will it take to get Justin Fields to the point where he is clearly the better option? There were some questions about Justin Fields. It was a surprise that the Bears traded from 20 to number 11 to get him. Sims thought he'd linger all the way to the bottom of the round. You know, Sims has concerns about that throwing motion, and it is a little clunky. It is a little funky. He's got that elbow that gets thrown out, and it takes a little longer than maybe it should to get the ball out. And Sims had other concerns about Justin Fields. That the notion that he's got epilepsy may have caused some teams to view him differently, just because that's a health concern that other quarterbacks don't have. It's unfortunate that that's the way it is, but that's the way it is. They look at the total package of who they're drafting. But, you know, I look, having him at number 11 puts an added degree of expectation and pressure and intensity and urgency on his development. And even if they plan to have Andy Dalton as the week 1 starter, Bears fans, they're going to be going nuts waiting for Justin Fields to get out there.
And, you know, Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, this is that we talked about the magic bullet with Aaron Rodgers and going to Denver. This is it for them. This is their magic bullet. They had to do this. They have to have Justin Fields be good this year. Otherwise, it's curtains on them because you don't. I mean, it's almost unprecedented at this point that Ryan Pace gets to decide another quarterback. So they need him to play, and they need him to play well. So everyone feels the pressure.
Don't you think, though, that when whoever it was in the organization that authorized the trade up to get Justin Fields, implicit in that is you can't have Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy on the hot seat this year. You have to give Fields 2 years to show who he is. No. What a mess that would be, though. You fire the GM and the coach, and then you hire new ones who don't want Justin Fields?
Mike, you're talking about the Bears. Everything you just said would be fine if the Bears had any logic. Ted Phillips was probably like, I don't care, just draft them. They don't make sense. They don't run well. The fact that Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy got to decide the next quarterback is stupid to begin with. Like, that shouldn't.
Here's my theory. You want my theory?
Yeah.
My theory is Ted Phillips is on the hot seat with them this time. The 20+ years. He's the common thread. He's the guy who's been hiring all these people who get fired. I'm telling you, I think that because when it happened 2019 season, when the train was starting to roll in that direction, Phillips was attached to it. I know we attach him to it. We're like, it's a fair question. How long does a guy who doesn't have a football title get to hire football people before he's accountable?
I mean, it's all coming to an end anyway because when the McCaskies sell the team, Ted Phillips is gone. So you could spin it that way as well.
I just think that Phillips. I think Phillips is on board with it because Phillips is out the door if they are, and I think Phillips helped. I don't know this, but this is just common sense. I think Phillips helped engineer a conversation with the McCaskies that if we do this and go get a quarterback, we got to give these guys 2 years minimum to develop this guy.
We'll see. They don't run like a normal organization with coherent thoughts, so nothing surprises me. The Bears could go 6-11. Is that the news records now? 6-11. Justin Fields could look like so, and they might give Matt Nagy a 10-year contract. Like, who knows?
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.